Good evening, Scotland. Good evening, social media land. I hope you are well. Welcome to That Indy Show. It is Friday, the 27th of January 2023. We're recording tonight's live for the security and integrity of the message and the ability to upload and share via other platforms. Every night I like to set the context of the discussion, and tonight is absolutely no different to any other night whatsoever. So the context for tonight, pretty much the same as every other night, which is that, where shall we begin? Okay, let's do it this way. Every election won for over a decade and mandates ignored by Westminster, voted to remain in the EU and not even invited to the table to discuss Brexit, and then dragged along by toxic Tory Brexiteers out of the world's largest trading bloc and into an economy that is destroying us. A Supreme Court proving that we are not a union of equals. A UK government willing to use legislation to prevent progressive legislation voted into law by more than 2/3 of Holyrood MSPs. Now we have several sections of the Tory Genetic Technology Precision Breeding Bill that will circumvent the devolved competency areas of agriculture and food standards, with the goal of having unlabelled GE plant and meat products on the shelves in Scottish shops, without even discussing it with Scotland. Anglo-British nationalists in all devolved nations appear to be happy with their marching into full Westminster control. I truly don't understand why serfdom and being subjugated by a wealthy elite who cares not for us appears to be so attractive to these people. I actually find it embarrassing. And this is the context that I discuss the topic of tonight's live stream, that Scotland can do far better than all that I've already mentioned.
My name's Robert, and I have a question for you. Are you yes yet?
Some of you may find it boring that I keep plugging my friend Robert in this little jingle, but it's really important that you understand something about him. He was a previous no voter, now turned yes, and he sat with me one afternoon and we recorded a whole 40 minutes worth of interesting chit chat about how his journey was quite emotional. That's the little link to it there. You guys can watch it, share it, and I recommend that you use it to help people who are deciding whether to vote yes or not. People that are undecided, they might just need to hear a friendly, normal voice saying, hey, it's okay to be yes, you know? Okay, let's see who we have in the chat before we get on to tonight. I'm also getting those funny signals again from it all, but I brought my iPad up and look. I can't see it. You can't see it. You can't see it. Oh, you can see a little bit of it. There is Mo on his iPad, 1 minute in the past. Okay, that's you guys all. Where am I? That's you guys all there. All right. So I'm actually monitoring the live from a third piece. I don't even know. I should really get an account for that. Okay, let's see who's on. We have Kieran. Hi, Kieran. We have Vincent. Thank you for coming in, Vincent. It's always good to have you here. Morgan. I like Morgan. Morgan and I are good friends from the past. Kimru's here, member of our community. Druss, Beth, James. Hi, James. Blackfur as well. And Declan. Thank you all for coming here. If you're hiding in the chat, don't be afraid to come and say hello. Everybody is very cool. I don't know whether I've got the chat set up, so you have to subscribe to be able to interact. But we do stop at particular points of the chat, of the show, to speak to people for the pertinent points. Now, I've got 3 little interesting discussion points before we get into the main topic of tonight. And I think it's important. They're actually news articles of things that have been going on. I've got all my buttons set up wrong. There we go. So let's first of all talk about Isla Bryson. Bryson is this serial rapist that is waiting to be sentenced just now. Bryson's 31, was remanded to the jail in Stirling after being convicted of raping 2 women, and then she changed gender. She identified as a woman, I believe, and began transitioning from a man to a woman while awaiting trial. Okay, this is this controversial person that is being brought up in Holyrood and set as an example in this culture war that the Tories are doing. Now, understand right now, okay, that I don't agree with a man going to a women's prison, but it's out of my hands. Okay, should this person have gone? Probably not been a rapist. Probably not a good idea there, okay? Anyway, she's due to be she. I don't know whether to call her she or he. It would probably be appropriate to call them she because they're transitioning to a woman. So we'll even though the person probably doesn't deserve respect because the person's a predator, we will give them the benefit of the doubt about this. Anyway, she's due to be sentenced next month. But this has been the subject of heated debate with safety concerns for a female prisoner. She is now being held in Saughton Prison in Edinburgh. And with the gender recognition bill being such a hot topic just now, the Tories are setting about a culture war on trans people and by extension the LGBTQ+ community. This puts a spotlight on the ISLA issue and is made out to be the fault of the Scottish government. I mean, when it's pouring rain outside, it's Nicola's fault, you know? It's just ridiculous. The right-wing press and Tories are saying that it took a public outcry for the First Minister to act. But the First Minister actually did make a statement in Holyrood about this very subject yesterday.
First Minister, I think I'd repeat some of what I've already said, but let me be clear. This prisoner is not going to be incarcerated in Corton Vale, either short-term or long-term. There is an importance of allowing the Scottish Prison Service operationally to give effect to what I have just said, and that is important to stress. These are operational matters for the Scottish Prison Service. The very fact I am standing here and addressing them, and I think most people listening to what I am saying right now will understand fully what I am saying. I am not, to use Douglas Ross's phrase, hiding behind anyone. I am setting out very clearly, firstly, that I agree with the comments of the Chief Executive of Rape Crisis Scotland yesterday when she said, and I repeat, I don't see how it's possible to have a rapist within a female prison. It is, of course, right and proper that there are individualised risk assessments done on every prisoner, and that is important. But I agree with that statement. And what I have said is that short-term or long-term, this prisoner is not going to be in Corton Vale, but it is important to allow the Scottish Prison Service operationally to give effect to the decisions that they have taken.
Okay, just missed that there. I've noticed that some people are saying it's a bit buffery and it's not great. I'm getting these same error messages that I got last night, and I've got a red light on OBS. But I don't know whether that's the First Minister, the video that I'm playing, but watching it's just, now you can't see it, watching it on my iPad just now, it seems to be okay. Right, so apologies, big apologies that it's not coming out the way that I wanted to. I'm recording it as well on OBS, so we'll get a nice smooth one as well, which is okay. I can upload that later, so yeah, apologising for that. I'll do a test stream after this to make sure that it's working and maybe tell OBS to go and pick up the right things. It's all good for you, James. Brilliant. Thank you. Right, so an article in ScottishLegalNews.com back in August last year. I will drop the link for that in here. There you go. States that there are just 6 transgender prisoners across the entire Scottish prison estate. And most are not held in prisons corresponding to their identity. New figures show. According to a report published by the Scottish Prison Service last week, there are 11 trans women and 5 trans men in Scottish prisons at the end of June last year. Of the 11 trans women, 6 were held in men's prisons and 5 held in women's prisons. Of the 5 trans men, 1 was held in a man's prison and 4 were held in women's prisons. Almost all the prisoners were held in single cells, while 1 trans woman was residing in a double cell in a man's prison. The report states that SPS defines social gender as the gender in which a person lives their day-to-day life. It may differ from the gender assigned at birth, which is the gender a person was originally registered as on their birth certificate. Non-binary individuals identify themselves as having no gender or as being on a gender spectrum between a man and a woman. I believe the GRR is and was, whichever way, if it's dead or not, we don't know yet, a progressive and positive piece of legislation. The fact that it's not been passed is a disgrace to the trans community and a travesty of the devolved democratic process. It is very clear though that the Scottish Prison Service has quite clear procedures for dealing with the subject of trans prisoners and will remain vigilant in a case-by-case scenario. As for the ISLA situation, I'm not the world's biggest Nicola Sturgeon fan. I don't dislike her. I think that she does a good job. I carry an SNP card. But I praise the First Minister for her intervention, as this was necessary and vital for the safety of female prisoners and the correct thing to do, regardless of the public perception, people saying that, she wouldn't have done anything unless people started shouting about it, which is cool. No, I think that it's the right thing to do, that Isla had to be taken. If Isla was put into a women's prison, I don't know whether she attacked anybody there, did she? Somebody might be able to tell me. But the whole thing with Isla is that the Scottish Government was getting blamed for that purpose. The SPS is a government functioning body, but they're kind of autonomous with the decisions that they have to make for sending people to which jail they go to, especially with trans people, and having, 16 across Scotland, and capably being looked after, and apparently not being a danger to themselves or other people, allegedly. So that's quite a positive thing. Vincent, thank you now for saying that it's steady. Hi, Lydia. I'm glad you made it here. No, I do. My lives are very late, Lydia. It's the only time I get an opportunity to have the time to myself without the kids running around and my lady wife taking up my time. When I say taking up my time, I happily give my time to my lady wife because she's amazing. Okay. Our next headline, the next sort of subject is about the retirement age in the UK. It's brief but pertinent, and it's regarding a report in the media that the expected rise of retirement age is to be brought forward. It was supposed to be moving to 68, but it's now been brought forward. And sorry, let me start that again. The retirement age was being increased to 68. And they weren't going to be doing that until 2040 or in the 2040s. But there was a report in the media saying that somewhere within Westminster they were talking about doing this in the 2030s instead. So government insiders have been forced to deny that there's a cabinet split over this discussion. And a review into the state pension age is due to be published in the coming months. So bear this particular moment in time where a report has said that they're going to bring the date forward to 2030 or into the 2030s rather than the 2040s, and that Westminster is denying that this is the case. Okay, this is really important, all right? Simply because if the report comes out and they say, well, we're going to make it 2030s, you heard it here when we're talking about it just now, that they denied it, and, well, it's true. However, let's quickly remind ourselves about several other pension issues that are important in the context of independence. First of all, the UK has the lowest pension in the developed world. A good comparator is the pension here is 29% of average UK income, compared with the EU showing 79% of average income. Now, I have in the description of this live a couple of website links. I will put them up here. One stating just now that the UK has the lowest state pension in the developed world, and a nice little one from Believe in Scotland that talks in more depth as well about pensions. Also, the SNP have agreed to set up a working group to raise pensions in line with the EU when we become independent. So this is really important as well, because in the media, when they talked about it all, they were saying that the SNP said they would raise the pension in line with it, but that wasn't the case. It was agreed at conference that they would discuss this because they have to make that work and make it possible to do so. So there's a little fact checking thing about the SNP and the pension vote as well, so we can clearly see that they did talk about it, but not in the context that the papers mentioned, which is interesting. Okay, existing pensions as well. It's important to know that they will be secure and safe come independence. It will either be the UK government or the independent Scottish government that will pay for them, but they will be paid for sure. And I have a brilliant Open Minds article. If you subscribe to the National, you can check out that one, and also a nice one in Holyrood.com, which is about how the SNP policy has not changed on pensions come independence. It's a part that needs to be negotiated. It's a fund that people have paid into, and if foreign nationals who have paid into the pension in the UK can receive it in their home country, I'm pretty sure that people in Scotland who have paid into it will be able to receive the pension as well. So again, I've got links for all these things. If you're missing them here in the chat, they're sitting in the description already for you guys to go and check out. Okay, so the last headline that I want to talk about before we get on to my subject about the NHS tonight, all right, is quite important and may be triggering for some people. I actually find the whole thing quite disgusting, to be perfectly honest. Listen, it's awful. I want to discuss the utter disgrace that vulnerable refugee children and children in the asylum programme have gone missing from the alleged professional and secure care of the UK government. As a nation, we went ballistic, we went nuclear on the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. And what are we doing about this? You know, we are going about our lives not seeing this in the media, that children, the care of the UK government, have gone missing, 80 from one site and collectively across a number of other sites. The number is closer to 200. Now, some of these kids have been found, but not all of them. I've got a couple of videos to watch about this, about the attitudes of this in Westminster.
As a trustee of the Holocaust Memorial Day Trust, this week I was honoured to hear from Leah Lesser, a Holocaust survivor who came to this country by herself at the age of 8 because her parents believed that the UK was a safe haven for vulnerable children. This week, I also read the government's own statistics, which said that there are 200 asylum-seeking, unaccompanied children who are missing from hotels in the UK. Ministers have admitted that they have no idea about the whereabouts of these children. So could I ask the Prime Minister, does he still think that the UK is a safe haven for vulnerable children?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the United Kingdom has opened up its hearts and homes to hundreds of thousands of people over the last few years, from Syria, from Afghanistan, from Ukraine, from Hong Kong, and provided refuge and sanctuary to many children in that process. But the reports that we have read about are concerning. Local authorities have a statutory duty to protect all children, regardless of where they go missing from. And in that situation, they work closely with the local agencies, including the police, to establish their whereabouts. And that's why it's so important that we end the use of hotels for unaccompanied asylum seekers and reduce pressure on the overall system. That's what our plans will do.
You know what? I find it awful. I'm a dad of 4, and to even think that one of them would go missing is just, honest to God, I shit myself about that. Okay, it's something in a world where we're supposed to live free and secure and happy when that sort of thing happens. Anyway, this is the caring UK government, the government that we trust to do the right thing. It's embarrassing and truly unacceptable that this has happened. But there will be some people that won't care about this, and I find that highly distressing. I mean, what has happened to them? These kids that have disappeared. You know, what terror are they experiencing, and what is the government doing about it? Well, they did do something about it, apparently. They did contact all the appropriate people, and a bunch of the kids have been returned now, which is very positive. But when I just see Rishi talking about it, he should have been right out there with a plan, you know? He should have been out there looking after the kids. I mean, they're vulnerable kids. and a bunch of them have vanished. Now, Peter Kyle actually displays some serious concern. He's an MP, I think he's a Labour MP. Actually displays some serious concern in Westminster regarding his constituency, because that's where 80 kids disappeared. But his opposite number, who he's questioning, is a bit flippant about the whole thing. Let's watch that video.
The community I represent here was given just a couple of hours' notice that 96 unaccompanied children were going to be placed in a hotel in the community I represent here. I did visit that hotel within the days afterwards, and I visited many times since. So I can say that to suggest that these are specialist facilities is ignorant.
Exactly.
Yeah. In the days afterwards, I saw for myself, having met the children who were there, that some of them were extremely vulnerable. Vulnerable themselves emotionally, and vulnerable if they should leave the premises to being coerced into crime.
Yeah.
So I contacted the council, I contacted the police, I contacted the social services, I contacted his department, the Home Office. The only organisation that responded, I believe, effectively and with the kind of seriousness that you would expect was Sussex Police. But they lacked the facilities and the resources and the powers to do the job that needed to be done. It is incorrect to say these children are not being coerced into crime, because just last year, Sussex Police pursued a car that had collected 2 children from outside this hotel. When they managed to get the car to safety, they released 2 child migrants, and they arrested one of the members who was driving it, who was a gang leader who was there to coerce the children into crime. So, I accept that if one of the uncomfortable truth for us is if one child who was related to one of us in this room went missing, the world would stop.
Yeah.
But in the community I represent, a child has gone missing, then 5 went missing, then a dozen went missing, then 50 went missing, and currently today, 76 are missing and nothing is happening. So my question to the Minister is, when I visit the hotel the next time in the coming days, what will be different there than went before? Because if nothing is different, they are going to continue to go missing.
Well, perhaps the Honourable Gentleman and I should visit the hotel together when I visit in the coming days and see the facilities together. The assurances that I...
Hold on. Was Robert Jenrick, the immigration minister, flirting with that guy there? Maybe we should go and visit the hotel together. Big boy. I don't know. It's a serious issue though, alright? It's utterly disgraceful. And I have to say that Peter Kyle actually showed a massive amount of integrity with the way that he asked the question and put it across. He was, boots on the ground, going to find out what was going on, and he comes in asking these questions. I might send this guy an email and say, listen, I'm up in Scotland, but I'm really interested in knowing what's going on and everything like that. I do a tiny little live stream, and I've talked about it to my viewers and listeners, and we all agree that it's totally disgusting that this has happened under the Tories' watch and should never have happened in the first place. I think Lydia just said that a Tory minister was heard shouting obscenities and horrible things about this when it was discussed. We'll talk about that right now. What makes the matter worse, is that a Tory MP has been slammed over the comments that he's made about missing migrant children. This is former schools minister Jonathan Gullis, probably the most hated Tory this week. He heckled Labour's Tulip Sadiq when she raised the issue. That was the lady in the first video. I don't think you can hear what was said in the background of it though. When Sadiq raised the issue at PMQs, Gullis said, well, they shouldn't have come here illegally. Come on, Tories, are you so far in the shadows, that you think that it's all right to speak your dark thoughts out loud? Ah, man, they shouldn't have come here illegally. So, all right, okay, you're right. They shouldn't have come here illegally, so maybe they should just disappear into slavery or human trafficking or crime or something like that. I swear to God, that the more you listen to these people, you wonder who's brainwashing them, what drugs are they taking to think that it's okay to say such a thing about children. It's beyond embarrassing. It's just a disgrace. Anyone who still thinks they want to be part of this union really needs to reconsider the options. You may not like the SNP or Nicola, but come on, compared to this crass statement, the Scottish Government is far more acceptable. You know, I mean, I just don't get it. What do you think? Have a wee think about that just now, and we'll come back in a second.
I am Mo's mum, and I have a question for you. Are you yes yet?
That was genuinely my mum. Hold on. Yes, the mic is on. That's cool. It didn't say it was on this bit. That was genuinely my mum. She is a pro-Indy 70-odd person. She's a lady that is not a statistic for the over 55s or over 75s for voting yes. She does vote yes, and she does vote for the SNP. She occasionally drops in here and listens to my live. I'm just wondering if she's in the background quietly listening. If you are, Mum, come and say hello. She has done before. She's good fun, and everybody welcomed her and was really polite to her, and she was touched very much by everybody's positive sort of way of looking after her in this technobabble, technological world. Right, briefly, let's have a look. Yeah, Lydia, he was disgusting. He really was. I don't understand how anybody can possibly get away with thinking that it's acceptable to say that about children. Just writing them off like that. Oh, listen, sorry, Lydia, I have a bot called Nightbot that doesn't allow swearing and things or certain words. Yeah, it's something. It's usually Beth that flirts with Nightbot. So do you know something? It is actually the ladies and the lassies that get into trouble from Nightbot more often, more than anything else. Maybe Nightbot prefers the company of digital ladies. I do mean to switch him off, but please don't be offended by that. It's just that I put him on just to keep certain words out, but he's got his own little bank of words as well, which I've not changed. Druss says it was anti-human. I totally agree with you. And Kimru says more responsible adults and community caring about kids would at least give them a chance. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. Totally agree. I saw somebody else come in. Rin F. I know who you are. I've got it on a post-it note here. Look, I kept it. If you're still here, mate. It says, don't know if you can see that. Hold on. Rin is Dan. Okay, I kept it. Right? Totally kept it because it had to be kept, which is good. Okay. We're going to talk now. This is kind of the main subject of tonight. It's about the NHS, about how Scotland's funded and to do with the NHS. And I think it's right. Okay, Druss, Nightbots, is it because she said Tory? I don't know, Druss. But yeah, anyway, we're going to talk about the potential of the Tories actually deliberately destroying the NHS to sell it to their friends. Okay, so we'll start a bit of talking here, one video, a couple of jingles to break it up with, and we shall turn round and talk at appropriate moments. So get your how is Scotland funded and how is the Scotland NHS funded hats on. Okay, I've got links and things that I will put in the chat as well for people that want to go and check my work. Okay, so we need to first of all understand how the Scottish budget is funded. Okay, so the Scottish budget is funded mainly through annual funding from the UK government, known as the Scottish Block Grant, and devolved tax revenues as well. The block grant is calculated with reference to changes in spending on equivalent public services in England. The Scottish budget is allocated a population share of changes in funding using the Barnett formula, which is added to a baseline funding to give the revised Scottish block grant for each year. Okay, the funding is added. Whoa. Weird happened there. Okay. The funding is added to devolved tax income raised in Scotland to fund spending on devolved public services in Scotland. There are rules that govern how Scotland receives and manages its funding, and these are set out in the government's Statement of Funding Policy and the Fiscal Framework. All right. Yeah. So that what I've just read there, we sometimes when we're on other things like TikTok or Instagram lives or anything like that, and we're talking to people, okay, people say that I'm talking lies when I say that, you know, there's this thing called the Barnett formula, and that we're kind of done as per head of population equivalent to England, and is twisted a wee bit and everything. And the Barnett formula, okay, is based as well, you have to remember, on what we send down to the Treasury, okay? That's really important. It's not like, oh, England and the Treasury just give us money. That would be nice if they did, but it's not like that. We send, I think, about between 70 and 75% of our taxation that's generated in Scotland to the Treasury. The rest, sort of like 25 to 30%, is collected here in Scotland directly. That budget guide part that I just read is actually a gov.scot publication. I've just put the link in there just now for it all. Okay, it's important that you understand right at this particular moment that we are funded by this block grant, all right? So let's briefly discuss how the NHS in Scotland is funded. So it's important that we understand why cuts or privatisation in the NHS will affect NHS Scotland. First of all, the NHS is fully devolved in Scotland, absolutely 100%. This is very true. We get to choose how much money we spend on the NHS here. This is so very true as well. And as I said before, around 70 to 75% of our tax revenue is collected by the Treasury. Then a portion of it is returned to Scotland, which is usually a lot less than what we collected in the form of the block grant calculated by the Barnett formula. And as I said as well, 25 to 30% of our taxes go directly to the Scottish Government. But what does this mean for NHS in Scotland? Well, if funding for the NHS in England is reduced by head of population, it will mean less funds pass through the Barnett formula per head of population for health spending in Scotland. If portions of the NHS are privatised and thus Westminster stops spending in those newly privatised areas, this means again they're spending less per head of population in health, and Scotland receives less once again. So if we wish to spend more on the NHS in Scotland, we need to take money away from Peter to pay Paul, right? Because we have that fixed budget, that block grant. We can't go and borrow money to invest in public spending because our hands are tied. Our budget is limited to what we receive from Westminster. So if we want to pay nurses more money, we need to take money away from somewhere else. You know, this is so important that people get this. But I've been called a liar because of this whole thing before on TikTok. It's bizarre. Right, when we come back though, we're going to take a look at a decade of Tory underfunding of the NHS.
My name is Hero, and I have a question for you. Are you yes yet?
That was was Hero. Hero is a German national that lived in Manchester after Brexit, came up to Scotland, and is a avid Indy warrior fighting for Scottish independence as well. And he's a very good friend of mine. In fact, everybody that does my jingles that's not my voice are good people that I know in real life. And I think after Easter we're going to make a new set of jingles and have some fresh voices on here as well. So if you're interested in being one of the voices in the jingles, you need to come and join our Discord community, which we'll talk about a bit later. Okay, let's look at some key facts about Tory underfunding of the NHS. Okay, so the NHS, the NHS has experienced a decade of underfunding since 2010, when the Conservatives came into power in a coalition with the Lib Dems. Despite cash boosts in 2018 and 2019, the NHS budgets rose only an average of 1.4% per year. This compared to a 3.7% average since the NHS was established. So they might be pumping money in, but it's only gone up by 1.4%, where it should have been going up, by 3.7 at least. The whole NHS budget has not been protected, and the result is it cuts into frontline services, especially in public health. Nearly half the staff say underfunding stops them doing their job properly. Many say it's the worst situation right now that they have ever experienced. There is a crisis in the recruitment of staff across the NHS, including, too few doctors, too few midwives, paramedics and nurses. We know all this, and a factor of this is most definitely the lack of freedom of movement across the EU to encourage those that want to work in the medical profession to come to the UK. Per head, the government spends less on the NHS than many other comparable countries. We have less beds and less doctors per head than many comparable countries, and large cuts to social care and mental health have added huge pressure on the NHS, as there's not enough services outside the hospital to support them. Let's have a wee look at this chart that I've got here. 1 second. Where is my chart? There it is there. Right, let's have a look at this. Okay, so this chart here, you need to go along the bottom and you need to find 2009 and 2010. Okay, this is when Labour lost and Tories and Lib Dems took over. Now you can see that there was a big chunk of funding going up there. That was at the end of the Labour sort of time for doing things, right? Straight into 2011, 2012, which would have been the first budget. Look where that drops off to. This is the start of the Tory underfunding of the NHS. You can see that it goes up, it goes down, it goes up and down and down and up. And then when we hit kind of the COVID years, it goes up again. And the red line kind of shows that it's going up. But you know what? Not in real terms. To be perfectly honest, it's pretty poor. It's awful, to be perfectly honest. But that kind of shows you let's put the graphic back up again. It kind of shows you graphically, that little chunk at the end there, compared to the massive sort of columns when Labour were in power, compared to now and when David Cameron was in power. We're spending record amounts on the NHS. We believe in the NHS. Crazy times. They're talking rubbish, aren't they? They really are. Okay, so the government has demanded big efficiency savings, which many providers have found unachievable. And as a result of this, has driven up their deficits. NHS debts are being made the priority in local plans developed way back in 2016, and they lack the necessary investment leading to cuts in services across the country. So the local decisions being made is they don't have the funding to do things. So it's the local decisions have made to close particular services like A&E. Private sector companies, though, like Virgin, continue to win big contracts to run NHS services for profit. That's crazy. Public funds are being diverted away from patients and wasted on PFI and tendering. Rationing and increasing and waiting lists are rising. The temporary closure of services such as maternity units and A&E departments is now widespread. I don't know about you, but I kind of like the NHS. They saved my life on more than one occasion. Most recently when I had a stage 4 cancer tumour. Alright, I survived that because of the radical treatment that they gave me, the aggressive treatment and the experimental treatment. I don't think I would get that. I wouldn't be able to afford that. There's a comparator of a friend of mine that had cancer in America, and they had to sell their house. They had to sell their house to get treatment. I don't get that. Universal healthcare is something in a modern civilized world that should be available to everybody at a very high standard. Anyway, underfunding the NHS is one of the greatest acts of self-harm that the Tories have inflicted upon these islands. Now, the General Secretary of Unite, Sharon Graham, she has said it perfectly.
This employer, being the government, is not interested in doing a deal as far as the NHS is concerned. And I have to say, we are concluding now that there must be a much more sinister reason for this, because this level of self-harm is unprecedented. The public are crying out. I came here in a cab this morning and the cab driver was saying, why don't they just give a pay rise to the NHS? Everybody wants that to happen. It's almost like there is another reason for them doing what they're doing, because it's total incompetence otherwise.
What do you think that reason is then?
Well, I think that they are looking to privatise the NHS. Genuinely, I believe that they're looking as this is the moment they can privatise the NHS. I said when I was on your programme the last time that I was very concerned about the Chancellor, who was the health secretary, who wanted the NHS in the American trade deal. And there was a big fight about making sure it wasn't in the American trade deal. There is something unusual going on here, that they will not come to the table. There are choices that can be made that means we can pay for this. There is not a problem about paying. We're the 5th richest country in the world. There is something going on here. Otherwise, they are at a level of incompetence not known.
So yeah, when you hear that lovely lady there, what's her name again? Sharon Graham, talk with such passion. She's a bit of an insider. She knows what's going on. She can see it. She's on the front line. She's dealing with her members of Unite, and she's also a practical person. Love her or hate her, she's there doing what she's paid to do, which is to hold the government to account, and she really does, and she continues to do so. And I don't think she's talking rubbish there. I actually feel that that's what they're wanting to do. They're wanting to run the whole thing into the ground and sell it to their buddies. I don't want that. Do you guys want that? I don't want that. Absolutely not. So are Westminster in the frame for wanting to privatise the NHS? Well, the government's health and care bill soon set for its 3rd reading in the House of Lords, and this will actually accelerate NHS privatisation. And it's any wonder given the myriad of connections that exist between a number of frontbench MPs and private healthcare companies. Let's have a quick look. 2 of them, Sajid Javid has around £45,000 in share options in a California-based company which delivers private software, medical software into the health sector. Stephen Hammond became a non-executive director of a company called Opti Biotechs Health PLC, a biotechnology research company. And these are just 2 people. But Open Democracy as well, which is a great organisation, has revealed that the private healthcare firms have donated more than £800,000 to the Conservative Party over the past 10 years. That's a lot of money. Okay. Now, this may all sound very shocking considering the direct link of NHS funding in England and its correlation to NHS funding in Scotland. But do you not think that it's about time we fight harder for independence to save our precious Scottish NHS? I think we should. And I question no voters that currently rely on our NHS that are still willing to consider the union a serious option for our future.
The Saltire has a growing Discord community. It is the perfect place to rub shoulders with other indie folk like yourself. If you want to be part of this community, send Mo a DM on his Twitter account @TheSaltireIG.
That's us. I want to say that the three parts at the start of tonight's show, when we talked briefly about pension age, is something you really need to be aware of, because we are being assaulted on all sides right now, and it's disgusting. They're not going to give us the option to be able to go out and vote for independence. We might end up having to take it in the courts. We might end up having to take it with international help. But shoving that to the side just now, look at what they're doing. Privatising the NHS. They are not looking after kids, not even our own kids, but kids that have come here because they need protecting. They just don't care. Do we want to be part of that civilization? It's not even civilized. You know, it's disgraceful. And I find it embarrassing for people that I know that consider this to be an option. I mean, the excuses that I get back are like, well, we can vote the Tories out. But let's be perfectly clear about this from Scotland's point of view. All right? Labour is probably roughly where David Cameron's government was, all right, with regards to left-right sort of ways of thinking. And if we buy into the whole philosophy of like, let's vote Labour to get them out, if we've got a bunch of no voters wanting to, let's do this, we need to get the Tories out, we need to get rid of the Tories, that's what that is going to be fought on next year. But we're just going to get a Tory government in 5 years' time or 10 years' time again, aren't we? And it'll just start the cycle of nonsense once more. The only surefire way to protect Scotland and our interests here is with independence. That way, when we don't like the government or they are incompetent, we have full-blown powers in which we can vote them out. It's so important. So important. Let's have a quick look in the chat before we talk about Discord and disappear into the ether of the night. Yeah, Lydia, you nailed it. That video with the head of Unite, she totally nailed it. Indie folks visiting hospitals in Scotland reports say no ambulance sitting outside with patients in them. A&E very quiet and running. I went to A&E not that long ago, excuse me. It was fine, absolutely fine. Wait for this, right? The first day that my GP opened after Christmas, which was, I think was the Thursday, I had a terrible chest infection, right, over Christmas. I phoned up that morning and I got an appointment that day. How many people can actually say that that's happened to them? You know? Insanity. We've got a good NHS up here because we've got good managers running our civilization. Love them or hate them, they're not doing a shitty job. Okay? They're not perfect by a long shot, right? But that's just the nature of politics, isn't it? Crazy times. Okay, let's talk about Discord before we disappear. First of all, I will jump on to look. My mum is there. I just realised that. It only popped up just now. Hi, Mama. Hi, Mama. My mama is Katie Vicentin up there just now. So if you're watching, Mum, hello, 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 hello. So everybody say hi, Katie. I'm being on my best behaviour, Mum. I promise you I'm doing the right thing. I am fighting for independence the way that you raised me. Okay, with my voice and my tone and my manner and my ability to go and research things properly. It's all down to you, Mum. I am a product of your teachings. I love you, Mum. Anyway, Discord. We'll be jumping on there for a wee chat if anybody wants to come and join. If hold on 1 second, I need to cough again. If you want to join Discord, all you got to do is find me on Instagram or Twitter. On Instagram, it's just the Saltire. Saltire on Instagram, and on Twitter, it's the Saltire IG. Send me a DM. Make sure that you have an account for Discord, and I need your name with the hashtag numbers beside it. Otherwise, it does not work properly. All right. So you need to send me the name with the hashtag numbers. Once I've got that, I will verify that you have a Pro Indy account, that you're a real person and you're not like somebody trying to sneak in to cause a bit of disruption, because we've created a great safe space there on Discord for free thinkers, a bit of chit chat, not just about independence but other things too, and it's a good bunch of folk there. We've got just under 40 people now, and I'm going to limit it to about 60, which is good. So if you do all that and you're happy about coming to chat sometime, come and join us. That is it for tonight though. I won't be back until Monday. It is stock take weekend in my shop. All right. That's my mum saying hi, everyone. You're so good, Mum. You managed to type a wee message here. I'm very proud of you. Very proud of you. Great. That is it. Thank you, Lydia, for coming. Thank you, Vincent, for joining us. Aaron, I hope to see you across in the old Discord. Same with you, Kimru. And I think Druss is away. Robert, you need to come and join us sometime in Discord as well. I know that you've got an account in there. And thanks, Mum, for saying hi to everybody. And Beth, if you're still on, thank you. Thanks, everybody. I can go through the whole chat here just now, up and down, but I'm not going to. But we will call it a night. And back on Monday with a little bit more from the Saltire. Thank you very much for listening.